This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Tunisian President Kais Saied brokers a Libya peace declaration in Tunis. What way for security in the Sahel after French President Macron's visit? And mixed feelings across the continent ahead of Wednesday's Christmas festivities. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua live in Nairobi. Uche Okoronko now joins me with your business headlines.
Thanks, Mahia. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. We look at the situation in Liberia after a year of soaring prices and an economy on the decline. And the Chinese project that's connecting rural homes in Malawi to the world through satellite television. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Maya.
Thanks, Uche. Well, the Tunis peace declaration on Libya has been issued. This was led by Tunisian President Kais Saied, who was given the mandate by representatives of the Libyan Cities and Tribes Supreme Council to assist in finding a solution to the Libyan crisis. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi reports.
The Libyan delegation noted that the mandate comes after members of the council perceived from the Tunisian president his solidarity with the Libyan people in their ordeal at equal distance from all the protagonists and his readiness to find a solution to the Libyan crisis away from foreign interference and the military option.
We are honored with this meeting, which is a demonstration of public diplomacy led by Libyan tribes, the civil society and the youth. We represent a cocktail of Libyan society from all orientations and affiliations. You're not only the president of Tunisia, but you can also play a role in the region.
The head of state noted that Tunisia rejects all forms of foreign interference in its neighbors' internal affairs and encourages all Libyan and international peace initiatives.
This meeting is not a search for a new legitimacy or to replace it with another, but rather it is part of dealing with existing legitimacy while backing it with a new legitimacy that expresses the will of the Libyan people. This initiative is not against anyone at all. It can rather complement other initiatives, and that opens wider horizons.
Kais Saied said the solution can only come from the Libyans themselves. He added that Libyans are determined to restore their security and well-being and build a new future.
The future cannot be built on the ruins of the past. The Libyan people today must write a new chapter in their history with a new way of thinking that breaks with the previous stages in a way that contributes to ensuring Libya's security and prosperity.
The Tunis declaration urges all Libyans to sit at the negotiating table with the aim of reaching a compromise formula whereby to end the current Libyan crisis. The Tunis declaration also affirms that the solution in Libya will be solely Libyan without excluding or marginalizing any party, regardless of its political or ideological affiliations or the regions to which it belongs, under the roof of one civilian system and in a unified Libyan state. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, let's now turn to the security situation in the Sahel region. French President Emmanuel Macron and his Nigerian counterpart Mahamadou Issoufou presented a united front at the end of Macron's trip in the region over the weekend. We talk about that in a bit, but first, here's what they said.
To be able to deal with terrorism in the Sahel and in the Lake Chad Basin, it would be necessary to strengthen our alliances, in particular with France and with other friendly countries. I would like to thank you for all that you've done to mobilize European opinion on this war we are waging here in the Sahel.
Il nous faut en reclarifier le cadre, les termes.
We are at a turning point in this war. We need to reclarify the framework, the terms, and redefine the objectives more clearly. This is the ambition of the summit that we will hold together in Pau on January 13th with the head of state of the Sahel alongside France. First, we will have to define the political framework in which we operate. one without which nothing is possible, because states and people are sovereign in the Sahel. Whatever to attack, whatever to threaten, it's essential that sovereign people and that each of their leaders recall their wishes, their will and their determination.
Now, Dixon Osajie is a security expert who's been monitoring developments in the Sahel. He now joins us from Lagos with some insights. Mr. Osajie, the French president and Niger's Mahamadou Issoufou there presenting a united front at the end of Macron's trip to the region. Should we now expect any changes in the fight against militants there?
Oh, thank you very much. Nice being here. The visit of Macron to the Niger Republic is a welcome development. And if we're expecting a change, motivational-wise, yes, motivational-wise, the troops should be expecting a change because when it comes to engaging the enemy, all it takes is about motivations. The troops are very delighted to see Macron, and they believe that the French government are with the family of the late 71 soldiers who died in line of action. This visitation is a good one from the French government, and also the Niger government also need to key into this fight in an effective operational manner. They need to also look into acquiring more attack helicopters so that they could be able to dissipate the enemy and ensure that they maintain effective territorial behavior and not giving space for the enemy to take a lead against this war.
Now, lately there has been the appearance of rising anti-French sentiment in the region, and there are protests, of course, planned against French troops in Niger this weekend. Can the region do without this kind of external support?
All right. The protest or the pending protest is all about from the let me say conflict entrepreneurs who thinks that they will use such ideology to demoralize the activities and the support from the French government. But as you can see, the president of Niger, Issoufou, has clearly stated that the effectiveness of French approach to this war against terrorism has really yielded results within the region. And also they call for the essence of imperialism. That the essence why French are really putting more efforts in this war against terrorism in the Sahel region is for them to have a neo-colonialism within the Sahel region. But I don't think that is the truth. The truth remains that French care for the region, and they believe that whatever goes wrong with the region is going to affect the globe. So their presence within the region is a welcome development. And whoever is going on a protest, they should disregard such protests and also focus on the objective of this operation.
Now, the New York Times is also reporting that the United States is also considering pulling troops out of the region in its redeployment plan. Should the United States proceed with this, and what is the likely impact?
Believe you me, United States has played a global role in terms of counterinsurgency, in terms of finance, politically, socially, and you can also understand that they've lost a lot of troops all over the world. If the Americans are trying to withdraw from this battlefield, it's not a call for worry, because that is why most of the nations within the confines of the African region are independent. If you are independent, that means you should be able to cater for yourself economical-wise, social-wise, and political-wise. So if the Americans are looking forward to withdraw, they shouldn't allow that to dissipate their morale. Well, what they need to do is to go back to the drawing board, look at their operational methodology, look at where the fight is coming from, where they are, and where they are going to. So they shouldn't allow that to dissipate their morale. They should concentrate on the fight against this terrorism, concentrate on the youth as well. I've said it time and again that the youth needs to be involved social-wise, because the reasons why this fight is flourishing is because the enemy are taking the vulnerability of the youth. What are the vulnerabilities of the youth? Joblessness. And so if the youth are jobless, not having job from the state, a job from the enemy is a welcome development. So I think the Americans' positions, they reserve the right to carry out their own decision.
And we had 33 militants killed in Mali over the weekend after a series of attacks from the militants there. Are there any indications of where the battle is leaning now? And is the army recapturing territory?
Oh yes, that's lost is a big one to the center of gravity in the enemy's camp. The French troops methodically adopted a system, a Cote with these guys, because you could recall last month the French troop lost 13 of their men, and that losses was one of the biggest single loss by the French military since 1980. And they don't take that lightly, and that's why they use drones and they attack helicopter, Tiger attack, to get on these guys. And if the French government has pushed on these guys, I think the Niger government should also look at supporting this fight. The Malian government as well should also look at supporting this fight as well. They should ensure that they follow up the motivations from the French troops, because one of the greatest losses in a battlefield is for the enemy to understand the fact that he's losing troops day by day. I think it's a good one, and they should maintain an effective territorial behavior so that no one should come and take a space within their confines.
All right, thank you very much for your insights here on Africa Live. That was Dixon Osajie, security expert, joining us live there from Lagos. Moving on, recently allegations of human rights violations in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region went viral on Egypt's social media. China's ambassador to Egypt has dismissed the claims as rumors, saying that many Egyptians who have been to Xinjiang completely disagree with the allegations. The ambassador said the attempts to slander China's Xinjiang policy will not succeed.
The measures China has taken in Xinjiang in recent years are aimed at preventing the breeding of extremism and terrorism from the source. Those who attack China's anti-terrorism measures in Xinjiang stand on the opposite side of the international community. The despicable actions of slandering China's Xinjiang policy are exactly the same as those slandering Egypt's policies. Wise people will not be fooled by rumors. I believe that the Egyptian people are wise enough to tell the truth from a lie and will not be blinded by anti-China forces.
Now, insecurity in the Democratic Republic of Congo's North Kivu and Ituri provinces continues to hamper relief efforts. The Ebola virus continues to spread in both provinces. CGTN's Astatal has more on how the Congolese army is helping aid workers reach vulnerable populations.
Treatment centers will have a new addition: military personnel. Military attacks in the DRC have cut off healthcare workers from Ebola hotspots.
The government has increased the number of military and security personnel. Before, there were only a few soldiers that we could see passing by, but they were not enough to ensure that all the bases and the whole center was secure. But today, after the recent attacks, security has been tightened. We now see soldiers, and they have settled here in Biakato.
The Ebola outbreak in the DRC continues in the North Kivu and Ituri provinces. The World Health Organization attributed the rise in cases in the provinces due to a security threat posed to health workers. There is hope on the ground for a more sustainable solution to the crisis.
Now that there's been an increase in staff, our offices do not have such a sufficient number of soldiers. But still, it's better now. We hope that the security will be improved.
For now, healthcare workers continue to do their best to stop the virus's spread. Astatal, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live here on CGTN. Here's what's still to come on the program. Somalia battles a plague of locusts, and mixed feelings across the continent ahead of Wednesday's Christmas festivities.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
Pamperina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference.
No war, no one again he can holding guns. Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
The Excellency, thank you very much for your time now. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's turn to West Africa now, where police have used tear gas to disperse protesters in Cote d'Ivoire's commercial capital after politician Guillaume Soro's flight home was diverted to Ghana. Cote d'Ivoire issued an arrest warrant for Soro just days before his arrival into the country. Ivorian aviation officials, however, insist that it was his request for the diversion. He is a former rebel leader and candidate in next year's presidential election. The move against the politician is feared could escalate tensions ahead of the election. Soro helped incumbent President Alassane Ouattara come to power, but has since distanced himself from Ouattara's party, confirming his ambitions for the 2020 presidential election. Now, in the Horn of Africa, Somalia is battling a plague of locusts. Herdsmen and cultivators are calling on their government and the international community to help them. The locusts have left them struggling to feed their families.
He has 9 children to feed and relies on his herd of 100 goats to do so. But a massive plague of locusts in Somalia, which has already destroyed tens of thousands of hectares of crops and pasture land, has now spread to Dusa Mareb, where Hassan lives. It's the worst invasion in 25 years.
The locusts have destroyed all our pastures, and I'm very worried that my livestock will starve and die. Because these locusts are everywhere and are taking over the whole area.
The insects have destroyed 70,000 hectares of land in Somalia and neighboring Ethiopia, threatening food supplies in both countries and the livelihoods of farming communities. It's been made worse by unseasonably heavy rainfall and floods across East Africa in recent months. Experts say climate shocks are largely responsible for rapidly changing weather patterns in the region. Hassan and other farmers say they're doing what they can do to fight back against the locusts. But with such vast numbers, they say they also need the help of the government and the international community. Astatal, CGTN.
In Rwanda, over 2,000 refugees have been granted asylum after being rescued from Libyan detention centers. Many of them had attempted to cross the Mediterranean into Europe. One of them is Mohamed Daoud from Sudan's Darfur region. Here he is with Daniel Arap Moi for his story.
He is now safe. But the memories of Libya are still fresh.
They beat and something like this, and the people say, hey, you are a slave and something. They beat the people, punish the people. You know, there's no food.
Mohammed Dahoud is from Darfur, the troubled region in Sudan. As the conflict raged at home, his family raised funds for him to travel to Europe through Libya.
And I tried to collect the money to go to Libya, because the Libya in that time it was good. Every day I heard the people they are crossing by that way.
But tragedy struck. He was one of the many migrants who were arrested in Tripoli as they headed to the coast to board dinghies and cross the Mediterranean. At the detention center, he was one of the many who were physically abused and humiliated by being referred to as slaves, and that hurt him deeply.
When you call me a slave, that it is hard more than punish. That, yeah, of course you have to know that. Yeah. When someone say to you, you are a slave, that try to kill me, but not call me a slave, because I know myself who am I.
Dahoud is one of the hundreds of refugees who were recently evacuated to safety in Rwanda. This is in line with the Emergency Transit Mechanism Agreement involving Rwanda, European Union and UNHCR. Under this program, vulnerable migrants are being moved to Rwanda. Some are to be integrated into local communities or choose to return to their home countries. The European Union has offered Rwanda over $11 million to fund this scheme.
I feel like I go back home. Yes, this is my home, because I feel this is my home. Yeah, really. Because I see the eyes of Rwanda people, really they love the others. That's why I see the love in your eyes. That's why, I love this country and love these people. Hello. Hello, Mama.
He has not spoken to his mother for 2 years now, and her sweet voice on the phone enlightens his day. Back in Libya, over 2,500 migrants are still being held in detention centers. They wait for their turn to test freedom and acceptance. Daniel Arabmoy, CGTN.
Now, the world celebrates Christmas tomorrow on December the 25th. In Africa, celebrations will be varied as different communities also deal with other issues around them. Let's look at how some countries are gearing up for the day.
Regina Bande, a Catholic living in Burkina Faso's capital, attends Mass every morning. She says she stays informed about the security situation by keeping in touch with friends who live in more dangerous areas.
I often speak to people who are at Waiguya in the north and in the Sahel as well. They say it's not as easy being a Christian because when they go to Mass, they don't know if it will be their last Sunday. But our faith and our hopes guides us always. It leads us to persevere.
A series of attacks on Christians have taken place over the past year. Just this month, gunmen opened fire inside a church near the border with Niger, killing at least 14 people. But for Bande, these attacks should not discourage people from worshiping.
Our faith cannot be shaken by the events that we are going through. Christmas will be celebrated like previous times. We will go to Mass. We also have to buy things before Christmas to prepare for the festivities.
However, not everyone is doing the same. This year, vendors selling Christmas products say business is not booming.
There was no market. People don't have money. There are tensions in the country, so this year people don't have the money to spend, and people are very unhappy. So the sales this year are not as good as last year.
The past year's violence in Burkina Faso has killed hundreds and forced nearly 1 million people from their homes. This is worrying for a country that has long prided itself on its religious tolerance. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
It's just hours to Christmas Day and there's a rush to get some last-minute shopping done.
It's hard to celebrate, especially when you compare this to previous years. But we will just get the few things that we can and get together with family and friends.
2019's been a tough year, characterized by soaring prices and shortages of some commodities. It may not be like a Christmas from yesteryear, but Zimbabweans are doing all they can to make the most of it amidst the challenges. As shoppers hunt for Christmas Eve bargains, Nigel Hlatini is contemplating spending the holiday away from his wife, owing to hiked bus fares as transport operators cash in on the peak in travelers.
My wife is in the village and I am here. It's not the ideal scenario and not what I had planned. Last week, bus fare to my village was $75. It's $130 now.
He says he'll do more tending to his yard on Christmas Day and try to do something for some of his grandchildren with whom he lives.
The holiday has lost significance for us adults. It's now special for the young ones. Even though things are tough, we've been putting away a little in the last few months to try and get them something so that they can enjoy the day.
Hopefully their joy will be enough to make up for not being with his wife this Christmas. Mahia, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
The Christmas and New Year are an important period for Egypt, not just because of Egypt's celebrations, but also because it's a high season for tourism as well. Tourists come to visit the ancient monuments, but they also enjoy the beaches and sunny weather in Egypt rather than the cold winter elsewhere. That's why the government is adopting extra security measures around the country to ensure a safe holidays. Tourist sites will not be the only recipient of security deployment.
The government adopts a comprehensive security plan from before the festivities. More than 200,000 policemen and officers are involved. There is a security zone around churches and cathedrals. The last surveillance equipment are being installed. The strategy is to abort any operations before it happens.
Terrorism has been a concern after the 2013 uprising, targeting churches and worshippers. But the last 3 years saw a major improvement in the fight against militants.
It's excellent. The security situation now is much better than previous years. The ordinary Egyptian can feel the difference and how safe it's become. This safety has allowed tourism and the economy to flourish.
The work is currently underway to ensure an incident-free festive holidays. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Right, well, let's now go to Uche for the latest in business.
Thanks, Mahia. And coming up on Africa Live Biz, we look at the situation in Liberia after a year of soaring prices and an economy on the decline. And the Chinese project that's connecting rural homes in Malawi to the world through satellite television.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra. Hello, Naro.
This is how all stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, businesses and investors have largely welcomed the Phase 1 trade agreement between the U.S. and China. But the impact of the trade war continues. An analysis by Bloomberg Economics found that the cost of the dispute this year translates to about $134 billion in lost GDP. Now, with many tariffs still in place, the impact on U.S. shoppers and retailers still remains. Here's CGTN's Dan Williams reporting.
The Christmas spirit is flowing for Chicago shoppers. The holiday season is an important time for retailers.
Especially for a bike shop, this time of year is like kind of make or break.
But the cycling industry has struggled with tariffs over the last year. 97% of children's bikes and 94% of mountain bikes are imported from China. But at times over the year, the US imposed tariffs as high as 36% on cycling goods imports from China.
It was a pretty steep increase over a short amount of time, and we had suppliers that were, we would get a phone call from, and the same exact product that we were ordering from them was now 20% more expensive for the same thing. It instantly gets passed on to the consumer. It makes it more difficult for people that are like trying to get on a bike.
But there has been some good news. Earlier in December, the US and China agreed to a Phase 1 trade deal. The agreement put a halt on new tariffs set to be implemented and reduced existing ones. But the vast majority of tariffs remain. On Chicago's main shopping street, the so-called Magnificent Mile, the impact of tariffs on shoppers appears to be mixed.
I feel like I've gotten good deals just like I always do. I don't really see a big difference.
I found that on the Mag Mile, things were just unbelievably expensive. It really made me feel that something's going to happen because some of these prices are just not sustainable.
I think they're probably around the same. I mean, maybe a little higher. I feel like prices are always higher around the holidays.
The trade dispute impacted some areas of retail more than others. And although there will be a relief that the latest round of tariffs were not imposed, the threat of those tariffs brought uncertainty to the industry.
If the government throws in a whole lot of uncertainty, you're not sure what's going to happen, you end up making decisions or delay making decisions, waiting for everything to sort out, that really does kind of put sand in the economic machine. Having a regime that's predictable is one of the most important things you can do in an economy.
The past year has been a difficult one for US retailers. They will be hoping the new year will bring fewer tariffs and more certainty. Dan Williams, CGTN, Chicago.
Well, let's move on now to our first installation of our series on Liberia. There is widespread discontent in the West African nation over a worsening economic crisis. Now, businesses there are on the decline and inflation has soared. Also, consumer prices are up while employment prospects are diminishing. Earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund reviewed Liberia's economic growth forecast for 2019 to 0.4% from 4.7%. Here's Susan Mwongeli reporting.
Monrovia's sprawling seaside slum of West Point is a bustling place. With about 75,000 residents, it's a good choice for a food business. But Patience, a mother of 5, says business is not as it used to be.
The business is hard. We sell the business now. You mean to get on the side now? No way. Thing expensive, thing hard. I tell the business now moving there before.
Before, she would make about $5 a day. Now she says it takes a stroke of luck to make half of that. It's not just failing business that Liberians are complaining about these days. Rising food prices too, which have doubled in recent months.
If we are not in recession, then I may say that sooner or later we'll get into depression.
Authorities attribute the situation to the 2014 Ebola outbreak that killed almost 11,000 people in the region and scared off both investors and aid workers. Then there is the withdrawal of the United Nations peacekeeping mission, whose average annual budget was equal to almost a quarter of Liberia's GDP between 2007 and 2018.
Lower Virginia used to boast of a large expatriate community. But since the last troops of the UN mission in Liberia left in 2018, places like this remain deserted. And it's a similar story in other parts of Liberia.
Brutus Sobi is a former driver for the UN in Liberia. He lost his job last year when the mission wrapped up. He now runs a taxi service, but his car broke down a few days ago.
Yesterday, a friend sent me mobile money, just $1,000 Liberian dollars to get it out. This guy had to tell me, say, no money. He only sent me money, but I'm not receiving money. So I had to beg him just to get my $1,000 from him so I can provide food today. Because my vehicle now is down. As I'm speaking to you. So land is not easy.
We should have planned for sustainable growth after Omid Shahal left the country by investing into the real sector, whether agriculture, to stimulate some sort of a growth. But our government only focus on extracting industry sector, which is the iron ore, where we export the robot. And the king of time, the resources price went down in the global community.
President George Weah has publicly acknowledged Liberia's economic woes and promised action.
When we had hard evidence of corruption, the president took action regardless of who was involved. And in this instance, that was the head of a public corporation. He immediately suspended him and put him at the disposal of our Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, and he went to court. He was just recently vindicated. I need to mention that. So it shows that where the president needs to take the strong actions, and generate the necessary political will to act, he acted.
These steps are doing little to assuage Liberians with mass protests planned for later this month. Organizers of December 30th protests believe this is the only way to get the government to take concrete steps to fix the economy.
We have government owing civil servants months of salary payments. There have been entities and government ministries and agencies that have been protesting for salaries, for transportation arrears, owe them. All of these issues keep piling up. And then on top of it, we have a systematic breakdown in transparency institutions.
In October, government agreed to an economic and financial deal with the International Monetary Fund to implement reforms including wage harmonization, an affordable wage bill level, and prudence in overall public sector spending. Good news for now, but might take much longer to implement. Of concern for both patients and Brutus is immediate steps that will bring in more cash flow and lower food prices, so that, together with their families, they can have a good Christmas. Susan Mungeli, CGTN, in Monrovia, Liberia.
Well, let's head to Somalia now. The country's federal government has launched a 4-year national development plan in the capital, Mogadishu. President Mohamed Farmajo witnessed the launching of the country's 9th National Development Plan, which of course will focus on 4 key areas, including security and political stability. Now, the government hopes this plan will result in the continuity of the country's economic development plan. The Somali people have welcomed the 2020 and 2024 National Development Plan.
The Somali government is committed to ensure that this National Development Plan leads to the implementation of a complete strategy that encourages investment in the country and also helps in the realization of economic achievements and create opportunities for our business community to find investment opportunities by connecting to the international markets. We also want the plan to lead to the creation of employment opportunities for our youth who graduate from the local universities.
Like the previous plans, the latest plan can bring about positive change in the country. It can contribute to reforms in the economic and political sector. It can lead to collaboration, better understanding and reconciliation among the Somali public.
This plan can lead to a positive change in the country's development if it is implemented properly. In situations where there will be a gap and the current government fails to attain re-election, we urge the incoming administration to continue with the plan and ensure the target is achieved.
And in Malawi, a satellite television project seeking to connect about 500 rural communities in the country is now opening rural masses to the world. The project, implemented with the assistance from China, is helping Malawi's rural populations learn new farming techniques. Here's CGTN's Daniel Arap-Moy reporting.
The living room is silent. Attention focused on a satellite TV program broadcast from China. This family is not watching a televised drama series. They are learning new techniques of rice farming from China in their living room. Sadrak Venad, a farmer from Piliranjuzi village in Malawi's traditional authority Masumbukunda, is one among thousands of low-income Malawians benefiting from China's satellite TV connectivity project.
I am happy because now I am able to watch and learn about different cultures across the world, something I never thought would come my way in this life.
This rural family now enjoys the full benefits of the digital world as China and Malawi enhance their shared pursuit of bilateral cooperation. The Malawi Satellite TV project is part of a forum on China-Africa Cooperation Initiative that aims to provide satellite TV reception to 10,000 African villages. Maxon Poko is another resident of Pirilanjuzi village enjoying the China Satellite TV project for the first time.
In the first time, when I wasn't got this one, my children were playing with something which is harmful to them. But upon using Star Times, my children do mostly enjoy very much.
In this village, one cannot fail to notice TV satellite dishes mounted on rooftops, signaling clear access to information for villagers. According to a 2014 survey by the National Statistical Office, only 11% of Malawi's households have working television sets. The Chinese government, through the project, has donated 500 solar-powered digital TV sets, fully integrated with decoders, 1,000 solar-powered projectors, and 10,000 digital decoder sets. China's support to Malawi's rural poor aims at bringing development to the country's rural masses through rural growth centers.
This has boosted the worldview of people in the villages, because you know that the people in the remote areas, in most cases, they are denied of access, to information. But with this, the project that government has rolled out through aid from China, we have been able to reach out to so many people.
The Malawi Satellite TV project is being implemented by China's Star Times Group, enabling locals to watch at least 21 TV channels at affordable cost. Daniel Arap-Moy, CGTN, Pirilanjuzi Village, Malawi.
Now, of course, Wednesday is Christmas Day. Before we end the show, let's take a look at what Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest men, gives his family for the holidays. Now, the billionaire carries his investment strategy into the gifts he prepares. He switched from always giving about $10,000 in bills to his relatives to giving $10,000 worth of shares in a company he recently bought. Buffett's former daughter-in-law, Mary, dishes that Buffett told each family member they could either cash in the shares or keep them. But as for gifts Buffett would like to receive, Mary says there probably aren't any. Well, that's all for now in Africa Live Biz, but coming up on Global Business Africa. The Central Bank of Somalia has ordered forex traders to close their forex accounts in commercial banks with immediate effect. We'll have the details and, of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Uche. Well, still to come here on Africa Live. We'll tell you about the South African superhero created by a 7-year-old.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Nta, an anchor for CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Now, the City of Culture in Tunisia has hosted the 21st edition of the National Golden Hand Award. It is open annually to artisans, creators and designers of the traditional female and male clothing. This year, tribute was paid to craftsmen and fashion designers who have created modern clothes inspired from traditional outfits. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi brings us this story.
The Khomsador, or Golden Hand, is the most important event of the year. This edition attracted Tunisia's most talented designers from 24 regions across the country.
We've discovered fascinating and revisited outfits. The Ministry of Tourism and Handicrafts is encouraging Tunisians to wear traditional clothing every day. We are boosting local production and creating jobs.
Beauty was celebrated in all its forms. The traditional jabba is the most popular male costume, and koftan is women's favorite clothing at marriages and official ceremonies.
The first competition is dedicated to women's outfits, while the second to men's. This is a new award which we introduced this year. Choosing the winners was very difficult.
For years, male designers have dominated the scene of design in traditional clothing. This year, 2 women won the prestigious award in the male and female categories.
I am proud of this achievement. I used new accessories with traditional handmade embroidery and copper in all my pieces for women.
I've always designed men's clothing. I used ancestral Tunisian symbols and features from architectural designs. I focus on the color blue, which is tied to Tunisian culture.
An exhibition of traditional clothing was organized in the hall of the City of Culture. Many designs were inspired by La Main de Fatma, an amulet protecting against the evil eye, which is found on many handicrafts in Tunisia. Winning the Khomsador Golden Hand opens the door of fame for the most talented designers and attracts investors. Tunisians believe that mastering the art of mixing old and new, as well as modern and traditional style and handmade outfit, is a gift. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, children love transforming into their favorite superheroes like Superman, Spider-Man and Batman. But a 7-year-old South African boy has taken it a step further. Prince Mashawana has created his own superhero called Super Mash. He's inspiring children to stand up against bullying. CGTN's Julie Shire now reports.
You can be your own hero.
Prince Mashawana is just 7 years old, but he's already spreading kindness in the world. He created a character called Super Mash who inspires confidence and bravery in little children.
My superpowers are super flight, super strength and super speed, and Super Mash helps kids to be confident, and Super Mash even tells the kids to even tell other kids to stand up too.
Having been bullied himself, Super Mash wants to put an end to hatred among children. It all comes together with a magical armband which encourages good deeds.
When they got this band on, they have all of their superhero powers. After that, they can go and then put the costume on and then start to go and tell the bully, stop bullying. It's not nice to be bullied at school. So you should be nice to other kids and tell your friends to even stop bullying.
The young superhero draws his inspiration from DC Comics' Superman. He has also come up with a comic book series of his own to help children read and cope with everyday stresses.
So the first book addresses bullying, but the second edition might address something else. It might address the issue of being friendly, or it might address the issue of stuttering, it might address the issue of somebody who's mean and rude, and so all these challenges that kids face. The objective is that parents must not wait for kids to grow up, because most of the strength and values that we have now as adults, we were taught when we were young.
Most of all, Super Mash wants young people to find strength within themselves.
I want children all around the world to believe anything's possible.
Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And here's what's coming up in sports. Orlando Pirates celebrate global five-a-side football title.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.